students. I hope you enjoyed the walk in Toledo yesterday, the dinner. Me personally, I still have in my eyes the images of this beautiful city and all the conversation we have had throughout the day on this very interesting interface between science and science policy. I'm sure today there will be a lot of interesting inputs on the topic as well. So in order to start in an energetic way, we have put at the beginning of the day the third and last round of our pitching competition. So I remind you that throughout these 2 days, we will hear at the end 15 pitches from MSCA fellows or alumni on the topic of the conference, okay? So these are initiatives, ideas, projects, prototypes, services, whatever, that is related to this interface between science and policy. The dynamics is that we have these 3 rounds. There is a jury that will pick one winner for each round, but I remind you that there is also an award that is given by the audience. So you have there a Mentimeter link that you can use to cast a vote for your favorite candidate. So you need to vote for each one of them, rank them, and this will help us to define who is the winner of this 4th award. So the 3 rounds of the pitch competition are 3 different angles on the problem, on the issue of how MSCA can contribute to science and policy interaction, okay? So the topic of this 3rd round specifically is exposure to policy making. So the candidates will explain MSCA projects that include secondments, placements, short stays at organizations connected to policy making. I remind you the dynamics of the pitching to the candidates and also to the audience. So I will call on stage each one of the candidates. They will have strictly 3 minutes to present their pitch, and then there will be 3 minutes more for one question from the jury and the answer from the candidate. And what else? I think that's all. Remember that you have the QR to cast your vote. So I would start with the first candidate. I invite on stage Asit Kumar, MSCA Research Fellow at the University College Cork, Ireland, whose pitch is called Breathing by Bottles. Welcome on stage, Asit.
Okay. So I picked up this bottle from the cafeteria, seal unbroken. And if I offered this to any of you, most of you would be fine with drinking from this. However, if I offered you a drink from this bottle, suspicious origins, I have no idea what's inside, you have no idea. By a show of hands, how many of you will be comfortable drinking this water? No one, right? Every day we drink about 6 such bottles of water. Every day we breathe in about 18,000 equivalent bottles of air inside the buildings that we live and work in. We are careful about what's in the water that we drink. We make sure that it is clean, it's devoid of pathogens. We barely pay any attention to what's in the air that we breathe in and how it affects us. If we take a moment to think about it, there are clearly issues with the air that we breathe. And the changing climate is probably going to make things worse. Every year, there are nearly 7 million lives lost due to compromised outdoor and indoor air quality. And while outdoor air pollution is very visible, we need to think of it as one air. We spend 90% or more of our life indoors. So that's where the air is going to come in and affect our health and well-being. There are several challenges to indoor air quality. It could be something like a heat wave, it could be a wildfire, or it could be the chemicals that are used in construction, and even something as innocuous as your everyday cooking. And as the pandemic reminded us, there are a range of pathogens that are dominantly transmitted indoors in poorly ventilated, crowded spaces. The future challenges to public health are going to impact us through our indoor spaces. What we are proposing is indoor spaces that don't just reduce discomfort, but actively promote well-being. So we decided to focus on classrooms for this, because classrooms are where students or children spend most of their time next to homes. They are often public buildings, and the pandemic reminded us that any disruption to schools is bad for the society at large. And inspired from water sanitation, which we have come to accept as a fact of our everyday life, we are calling this a drive towards indoor air sanitation. which results in healthy occupants and sustainable buildings. For this purpose, we have an interdisciplinary team with public health experts and engineers working with the planning and building unit of the Department of Education in Ireland. So this is intended for an exchange on policies regarding how they construct classrooms now and how can we improve those to make them healthier and more resilient for the future. How we intend to do this is through matrices of measures designed for different types of classrooms so that the classroom can provide a healthy learning environment in everyday use and be prepared for some challenge like, let's say, a forest fire. And these measures would consist of engineering solutions like removing pollutant sources, improving ventilation, adding filtration. The goal is to move towards a paradigm where the indoor space, indoor conditioning, functions as a parameter of public health and helps for the well-being of the society at large. Thank you.
Thanks, FECYT. And a question from the audience? Okay, Izaskun.
Thank you, Sid. Very interesting. Actually, we were working very much in outside air quality at the office. And I wanted to ask you about the connection in between both airs, right? The air quality outside and the air quality inside and how they relate.
So whatever is outside, if let's say you have a naturally ventilated space, so then the air is going to seep in, so what's called infiltration, or you could have a purpose-built ventilation systems like doors, windows, cross-ventilation. The outside air is going to come in. If it's mechanically ventilated, like this space, so some place there is a huge machine called an air handling unit that's going to take the air from outside in and then going to put it inside. So ultimately, what's in the outside air is going to come in and going to affect us. Sometimes it's on purpose, like mechanical ventilation. Sometimes it's infiltration, so we don't have much control over that. So it's kind of like, if you want good indoor air quality, we definitely want good outdoor air quality. But just because we have a Clean Air Act for outdoors, we should still have a Clean Air Act for indoors. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Great. Next candidate, Joe Carthy, MSCA research scientist and PhD candidate at the University of Granada in Spain. How smoking popcorn can save us all. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? I think, yeah, great. So to start with, I'm going to take you back to the summer of 2019. And I was living in a student dorm. And there's two things about students, particularly undergrad students. Sorry if there's any undergraduates here. But they really like microwave popcorn, especially in the States. And they're not very good at cooking it. So in this dorm, every few days, without fail, people would be making microwave popcorn. They'd burn it. And in my dorm, there was a really strict protocol where you had to evacuate the building, they had to do a head count, call the fire brigade. It was completely tedious. And this would be happening every few days. It was awful. But enough of that, I'm going to come to the main topic of my research, which is this beautiful mountain, or volcano, Mount Etna in Sicily. And this is a very active volcano. So in the past couple of days, we've had an eruption. In August, we had an eruption. In 2021, one of the cones of the volcano actually grew by 30 meters. And there is 1 million people living on the flanks of this volcano in different villages in Sicily. In Catania, as you can see here, then there's the beautiful Taormina, there's Zaffarana, Bronte, and many other villages around this volcano with different people who need to deal with living beside an explosive mountain. And we also have many tourists who want to come and visit. We have over 600,000 tourists a year. And so my work involves building machine learning models that help us to understand what is going on inside the volcano, that can help us to build alarm systems around the activity of the volcano. And one of the really big things for us is that we can build systems that people trust. So if we have an eruption like the one of the past couple of days, and we tell a lot of people that they need to react, respond, they need to evacuate, and we do this preemptively, then people will begin to lose faith in our alarm systems, and they start to get alarm fatigue, and they won't really trust our systems, and that's really pivotal for us. And so what we need to do is to work with policymakers and make sure they can understand the models that we develop, they understand the level of risk associated with different predictions by the models, and then they can interact suitably with the local communities around Mount Etna and other volcanic areas across Europe, such as Stromboli, and also in Iceland. At the moment, we have a real disaster happening, or potential for an absolute disaster, but I won't get into that too much. And so, yeah, that's my work on building these machine learning models, and just, there sometimes is smoke without fire, I will say that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Question from the jury, Antonio?
Hello, congrats, nice, very, very nice presentation. My question is, your system is okay, your system is perfect, your research is very successful. What now?
Sure. So, okay, if we develop the perfect system, it can understand what is going on inside the volcano perfectly. Okay, we're in the dream, because the volcano, it's hard to understand. It's quite frustrating because you can't tear it apart and actually see what's going on. But if we had a system that we thought was 100% reliable, then we need to work directly with policy experts and make sure they understand the different levels of risk from a machine learning model, and that they have the correct protocols in place to then communicate the risk with the community around living around the volcano, because that, for me, is the most important aspect, protecting those people. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Joe. Next candidate, Neus Escobar, MSCA postdoctoral fellow at the Basque Center for Climate Change, with tracking chocolate to fight deforestation. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, so I came here today to talk about chocolate. How many of you love chocolate and eat chocolate every week or even every day? Come on, raise your hands. Good. And how many of you know how much deforestation is associated with the chocolate you consume at home? Okay, one person. I could imagine, because indeed it's not an easy question, because it's something that researchers and increasingly policymakers have been trying to quantify, but it's not easy. Because we know, we know that Europe is the leading consumer of chocolate in the world and also the top producer. We also believe that chocolate is something very European, right? But the truth is that cocoa beans needed for its production all come from tropical countries like this, that are home of ecosystems like this, tropical rainforests, and also highly biodiverse areas. So that's why we should be worried when we see that harvested areas with cocoa beans have been increasing steadily in the last years, and especially in countries like Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, where studies have proven that this increase is linked to comes at the cost of forests to a large extent. But how can we allocate this deforestation to the final consumers? So to solve this puzzle, that's why we have been working together with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, where I'm currently working, to develop a database that traces supply chains of agri-food products from the production of the raw material up to the final consumption for 181 countries, 640 products, which is more than any similar model up to date. And another advantage of working with FAO is that we have access to publicly and non-publicly available data. And once fully developed, the model will have multiple applications, for example, to assess drivers of cropland expansion, as well as import dependencies and issues related to food security, also to estimate footprints, such as deforestation footprints or carbon footprints, and support, in general, more sustainable production and consumption. And this is linked to many of the SDGs, namely 2, 15, 13, and 12. Because when we eat chocolate, we want it to be deforestation-free, but also child labor-free. We want it to promote rural development and equality in the producing region and protect biodiversity. So this is why our framework, our database is needed, because it will help producers to choose more cleaner suppliers, also consumers to choose products with lower footprints, as well as policymakers to identify hotspots and do more targeted policies. So either you are a producer, a consumer, or a policymaker, I hope you find our framework useful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Neos. Question? Who wants to ask? Thomas?
Thank you. Like you said, we're all very familiar with chocolate, but apparently not many of us are familiar with the problem of deforestation in chocolate. So with the work you've been doing and the information you've been collecting, who would you say is the most important party that you want to bring this information to and share it with?
Well, first I want to clarify that this framework, as you can imagine, is very big, so we're still in the process of developing it. So for now, it's able to, we can use it to estimate cropland footprints, and then to link it with deforestation, it will need more further advancements with spatial explicit data. So I guess to reply to your question, for now, it's important to reach stakeholders in the producing countries, because at the end, those are the ones that have to take context-specific decisions, and I think it's important to show them that their production has an impact and it can be measured, and then it can influence negatively the supply and the demand in the countries that really buy that product, and that consumers are increasingly aware of these issues. And then, of course, it will be useful also to influence supply-driven options or measures for the consumers, but I think this should come in the second step, because the first is to inform producers in the hotspot areas.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. And now it's the turn of Niccolò Testi, MSCA early stage researcher at the University of Macerata in Italy, with a pitch called Open Up, Connect, and Innovate.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Niccolò, and I'm sorry. And this is how I help policymakers from 2 regions to open up, connect, and innovate. I live and do my PhD in the Marche region in Italy, and thanks to the Trust Project, which is a Horizon 2020, Marie Curie Actions, and the Research Staff Exchange project, I was able to spend a period in the region of Murcia in the south of Spain. The 2 regions have a very similar economy, and so they share the same struggles. And also they share a lack of innovation, meaning that the public administrations, the firms, the organization of the 2 regions lack the capabilities to adopt innovative technologies. And of course, the 2 regions are trying to overcome these issues by creating policies for innovations that, however, lack some a broader view on international collaboration. So what do I do with the policymakers of the 2 regions? I try to make them aware of the necessity to cooperate more between each other and the necessity to open up, to share best practices, because they also share the same challenges. And of course, the objective is to get to better innovation policies and to make them work together to projects for innovation. The picture you're seeing here is a picture that was taken in the region of in the Marche region offices. And it's a photograph that I'm very proud of, because it's the realization of my efforts. It is when, thanks to the funds from the Trust Project, the delegation from the region of Murcia came to the Marche region and had meetings with the officials of the Marche region. And we spoke about innovation policies, how to foster it. And this is how the policymakers from both regions started to open up, connect, and innovate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolo. One question from Graham, I think.
Thanks a lot, Nicolo. You've written in the past about using blockchain to engage citizens. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, of course. In fact, when the delegation from Murcia came to the Marche region, we also discussed about that. We discussed about using blockchain to preserve citizens' anonymity, to preserve their data from hacking. And so they started speaking about a joint project, which has not started yet, but it's ongoing, about using blockchain and distributed ledger to do exactly this.
Thanks a lot, Nicolo. Now I have to recover this very valuable piece of food, but I promise I will not keep it for me. It was only forgotten on the stage, so I will bring it back to the owner. Okay, so next speaker, Yiling Huang, MSCA Postdoctoral Research Fellow at the Institute of Science and Technology in Austria, and her pitch is called Bridging the Gap. Welcome.
Can you hear me? You can't breathe. You gasp for air, but water fills your lungs. That is what we are doing to our planet. I grew up in Malaysia, a tropical country where lush green forests, clear blue skies, and puffy white clouds are a familiar sight. But they are slowly disappearing because of global warming. So the issue of climate change is close to my heart. It brought me to my career today as a climate scientist. I study clouds. Research has shown that clouds are not randomly scattered across the sky. They tend to form groups. In a way, they are like people. They are social and like to hang out with their friends. My research tells me that the warmer climate gets, the tighter clouds clump together, and the heavier the thunderstorms they cause. The warmer it gets, the more severe flooding becomes. Our planet is drowning. But knowing this, how can I use my knowledge and skills to be of service to policymakers? How do I link my research to real-world questions that might impact your life? Questions that have important policy implications. What are the increased risks of flooding if global temperatures rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius? How many people will be impacted? In which regions? What is the cost if we did nothing to mitigate this risk? These are the questions that I would like to help answer. My project, Bridging the Gap, involves a 6-month secondment at IASA, an international policy research institute in Austria. IASA routinely provides governments and organizations around the world with scientific analysis for key climate policy initiatives, such as the European Green Deal and the IPCC report. This secondment will allow me to use my knowledge about clouds to design modeling techniques that can provide data for climate policies. It will give me an opportunity to bridge the gap between fundamental science and real-world policies. The climate crisis is an existential threat. We can and must find solutions to this threat. And I believe we have a better chance at doing this if scientists and policymakers work together. And then perhaps we can look at clouds again with wonder and curiosity, and our planet can finally breathe again. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yiling. And one question from Pablo
Thank you,
Camacho.
Lynn. Beautiful pitch. I was wondering that we all can see the clouds. So I was thinking if you have tried citizen science as a strategy for policy making.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I actually did my PhD in science communication, so I'm very passionate about citizen science and science communication. And one of the things that I actually did last year was we had a cloud exhibition in Vienna where we allow people to upload pictures that they take about clouds. And then we use machine learning algorithms to analyze those pictures and then tell people what are the impact of different clouds on climate, like what kind of clouds will cause rainstorm, what kind of clouds will actually make the temperature warmer. So there are different effects, and I think that was a fun experiment to see kids taking pictures of clouds and uploading them to the cloud.
Great, thanks a lot.
Sorry.
Thanks. Great, so now our pitching competition is over. We will reveal the winners in a ceremony at the end of the event. And remember that you have access to this Mentimeter link where you can choose the fourth winner, okay? Out of the 3 categories, there will be a winner of the audience. So we will leave it there for a couple of minutes. Remember that you have to cast the vote now and that you have to cast the vote for all the candidates to make it valid. And now it's time to go to a new policy discussion. We had one yesterday, and now we have another one, whose title is the European Research Area Action 4 and its connection to the MSCA. So basically, we will focus in this discussion on the most recent political initiatives at the European and at the Spanish level that are targeted at making research jobs attractive, diverse, sustainable. And we will focus especially on what actions foster this connection between research jobs and policy making. So let me introduce the panel. Okay, one reminder, afterwards there will be a different Mentimeter that you can use to pose your questions, okay? I will monitor them throughout the debate, and at the end, both those in the room and those connecting through the streaming can pose their questions, okay? But it will be a different one. It will come up later.